Before we jump into this episode, I want to take a moment to tell you about the upcoming Texas Woodworking Festival, a 2-day celebration where makers and enthusiasts come together to share their passion for the craft. Join us for a weekend filled with creativity, community, and inspiration. You'll meet tool manufacturers, furniture makers, woodworking clubs, content creators, and more, all in one place with great food and drinks, and of course, all things woodworking. It all takes place in Austin, Texas on September 26th and 27th. The festival features an education track on both Saturday and Sunday, where you'll have a chance to learn from masters of the craft. Plus, there's also a special pre-conference content creator track on Friday, September 25th. Head to TexasWoodworkingFestival.com for more details and to grab your tickets. Use code MWAP10 to get 10% off your tickets. I'll drop a link in the show notes. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, there's something for everyone at the Texas Woodworking Festival. Don't miss it. Welcome to the MWA podcast. I'm Kyle and I'm joined by my co-hosts Sean, Brian, and Jeff. Today, we're excited to welcome Deneb Puchalski as our guest. Deneb is a lead demonstrator for Lie-Nielsen Toolworks and has traveled far and wide teaching people how to use hand tools. Deneb studied and taught woodworking at the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship in Rockport, Maine. He continues to teach hand tool workshops and has written many articles for all your favorite woodworking publications. So welcome to the show, Deneb.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here, and I promise I won't butcher your name again. I don't think I have to say your last name again. We'll see.
There you go.
That's what we the next show.
I should have had Sean do the intro. We got the exactly. Right. The Wisniewskis and the anyway. Sure. Before we get into that, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
Sutherland Wells knows that exceptional craftsmanship deserves an exceptional finish. That's why they handcraft their full line of low and VOC exempt finishes and stains using the highest quality, cold-pressed, sustainably grown tung oil. Their unique polymerization process delivers the deep penetrating, grain-enhancing, non-yellowing protection of tung oil, while reducing the drying time and allowing the finish to build a beautiful, durable film. Sutherland Wells, the timeless look of traditional oil made for the modern woodworker, and use code MWA25, that's the numbers 25, for 10% off your first order.
And we'd like to thank Sutherland Wells for their sponsorship of this episode. And with that, let's give our patrons a shout out. So who do we have to thank this week?
Yeah, we like to give our big patrons, supporters a big shout out. And today we're giving that particular shout out to Ryan Stone. Thank you, Ryan, for helping us out.
Yes.
So if you would like to be like Ryan and help the podcast out, you can do that by going to patreon.com/MWA podcast.
Fantastic. So thanks a bunch, Ryan. And with that, what's in the shop? So Sean, how's this old house going? Has your son moved in yet?
No. No. Let's see. Last weekend, the upstairs main house portion got almost primed completely, although we need to do what you're supposed to do before, because there's a 22-year-old doing this. Mm-hmm. He didn't cut in all the corners. He rolled the walls and ceilings. And so you needed to then go in and get the finer points of the points where the rollers don't quite get to.
Right.
Before you can paint anything, because if it's not consistent, it's not going to look right when you do it. So when you actually get to color. But it's largely done. I'd say 98% primed at this point. And downstairs, just this past weekend, I did a whole bunch of more drywall hanging. I found out today, my dad was there finishing up, like setting outlets in the boxes. They're wired, but not connected yet. And I get a text at like 10 o'clock this morning. He goes, "You covered one of my boxes." And went, no. So like in the flurry of doing this, kind of me and my wife was helping me out on Saturday a little bit. I apparently missed one of the box cutouts. So I still do make mistakes. I'm here, hand up, fully accountable. And then there's this one particular spot that I'm futzing with. There is a large cutout that used to definitely be a wall. Mm-hmm. And there's a header there, but the thickness of everything, because there's some outside old siding, like 1917 old siding still there. So they furred that out 3/4 on that side. And on the inside, they have some lath catching up because something else has a different thickness on it. So it's a whole mess of like, how do I make this planar along this wide, like 9-foot wide opening? but there's a full header above it and then walls to either side of it. And that's my current like focus, to try to make it as right as it can be, so that when you put board on it, it looks consistent.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's a bit of I mean, I had a laser on it yesterday looking at it, like how bad is this? And it's like a 1/4 inch across the room. It's off.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to figure that out.
Yeah, that reminds me of when we built our house. I had in-wall wiring for the speakers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so these when the drywall guys came in, they drywalled right over the little box there for it. It wasn't as big as a normal electrician's box or whatever. And so the general contractor came back in and cut it back out. Then the drywall people were still there doing drywall the next day, and they came and patched it.
It's like, there's this rectangular hole here.
Yeah,
that doesn't need to be there. Weird.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It was hilarious. But anyway.
So that's ongoing. I hope to be my worry is that he actually ordered too much drywall, because there is an entire stack of probably 30 sheets or so that haven't been touched yet, and we only have one like dining room yet to go. So we'll see. If we got to return some, we got to find a truck and return it. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there, I suppose. I think it means that I've been pretty judicial on scrap as best I can be with what he purchased. Exactly. So Brian, how about you, man? What are you working on?
Well, it's been a hot minute since I've been on the show.
Kind of has.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Jeff. I've been on all over the United States and multiple continents, I guess, in the last 5 weeks, maybe. Yeah, I traveled to England, Vermont, down Delaware, Pennsylvania, all over the place here on the East Coast. That was mostly for business reasons, but I did get a chance. I needed a spoon the other day. So and I'm like, we had some recent storms come rolling through our area, and I'm like, one of my neighbors lost a good chunk of apple. So I went over there, and when he wasn't home, and took a big branch of the apple. Found my Sloyd knife, the chairmaker's draw knife from Bard, and I still had one hook knife here, so I made a small spoon. I don't think it's probably been a long time since I've actually carved anything, so it was rewarding, and I like tangible things that you can use. So
super cool.
And then this is going to sound ridiculous, but I just ordered a robotic mower.
Okay. Yeah, of course you did.
Yeah. So I mean, one of my neighbors has one down the street, and the lawn looks great, and it was just being so busy, and I'm like, I don't want to be that guy that got the crappy lawn. I'm like, Sean, you probably understand this. But you can't just have the mower, just out there, as a woodworker. So you got to build it a house, right?
Oh man.
So as ridiculous as this sounds, I want to build a Hobbit like home for the mower to pull into. So
like the whole like domed.
Domed, curved with the mossy roof and everything.
You're gonna have like a circle entrance to it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm designing this now because my house is like a French cottagey theme. So it's got like a lot of little natural landscaping gardens. So this thing can basically pull down a path into its own little house. Right next to the house. So it's totally unnecessary. I 100% admit that, but why not? Right. So,
right. Does it have like a docking station that it goes to?
Yeah. It's got,
put that inside there.
Yeah. I've seen ways that people have like a pressure pad when the mower comes over it. It opens at the garage door instead of being open the entire time. So I'm trying to think, how can I get it to kind of actuate two doors out, kind of like a barn, like when you pull a barn door, so that's a little my engineering theme. I might have to use some actuators or something. I don't know. It's probably probably way more complicated than it needs to be, but I really want this. I just want my neighbor to go, what the hell is that guy doing? So that's my thing. I hope, because anybody who's ever been here, I live right on a golf course, so this thing's probably gonna get pelted occasionally by golf balls. I hope they're sturdy, because they're not cheap. So yeah, that's what I'm doing, and it's I'm gonna have to document the series, because this is gonna be fun, I think.
I'm looking forward to it now that you've done
no kidding.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are you gonna have like little tiny shingles? You're gonna.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you need interior decorations, right? So you got to, make an interior to this thing. I'm worried about bees is the only thing trying to take up residence in this thing. If I make it out of cedar, when I had a cedar table out here, the bees never tried to build anything on it. So,
and it's resilient, it's rot resistant, bug resistant kind of. So
yeah.
And fairly easy to work with.
Yeah, exactly. And it's accessible where I live in Pennsylvania. So, so that's what I'm doing. Jeff, how about you?
Well, I just finished up doing a bunch of turnings and just getting ready for I was getting ready for a few classes I've got coming up at Aeromont and John C. Campbell. So I was doing a bunch of extra bending forms I made up. And now I kind of switched gears a little bit. I'll be in Alaska for 6 weeks working. Wow. So yeah, so we have our yearly turnaround. So I'll do my normal 2 weeks. Then we have our turnarounds for 2 weeks, and then I'll have my regular 2 weeks. So bring up a few set of chisels with me, some sharpening stones, and I thought, there's quite a few chairs that I have a little ambitious to make that I don't have things like the story sticks made up, and I'm kind of particular the way I make them. I like them to make them look, pretty and functional.
Did you finish them?
I do finish them. So I do, after I'm done, I throw a couple, spray a couple coats of shellac on them.
Okay.
Yeah. So they feel nice in the hand.
There you go.
They're very nice. So they, I saw them with the, I put a little saw kerf in them.
Yeah. If you do these for, like Curtis Buchanan's chairs, you could probably sell those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've sold quite a few of them. So
okay, there you go. Okay.
Yeah. And I just did that set for Greg's class. He's got 8 people. I was like, because when he first asked me to do them for him, I was like, well, yeah, sure, no problem. Then he told me, he's like, yeah, I have 8 students. I was like, oh Lord. I was like, 5's a lot. So 5. So I got that, and so now I just have a few projects I'm kind of working on after work. Mm-hmm. Nothing big, just about 45 minutes an hour is kind of my then it's right. I'm ready for bed. I'm working 12 hours, so.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. So you're in Alaska now. So is this the next 6 weeks you're going to be there?
Yeah, the next 6 weeks I'll be here, living the dream.
What part of Alaska are you in?
I'm in Valdez.
Oh, nice. I spent a lot of time up in Bethel in the Northwest.
Okay. Yeah, it is pretty nice.
Yeah, so
fishing
really, pretty flat and not it has its own beauty, I guess.
Yeah.
You like flat tundra.
Yeah.
Bugs.
For sure. For sure.
So what's the weather?
Beautiful. Yeah.
So it was funny. So as soon as when I got here, it was snowing a little bit. Then I woke up, and we had like 8 inches of snow on the car that morning. But now it's everything's melted off. It's so this whole between now and the next 6 weeks, it's going to be beautiful, sunny. Be like 75 degrees. That's about as hot as it gets.
Nice.
So throughout, the summertime, that's like max scorching hot 75 here. So, but it'll be some good days, and then come June, then when I go back home, I'll bring Copper back with me for 2 weeks, and we'll got a couple fishing trips planned. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Nice.
Have the rivers broken up yet, or is it still a couple weeks out?
Well, we're right. I'm right at the bay here, so it's about, I think right at the docks, it's like 400 feet deep.
Nice.
So, and it never, Valdez, the thing about Valdez is it never really, there's no harsh temperatures here. It never gets, like, it might be, in 17, 15 degrees, but it never gets like severe negative numbers. So it never really freezes. So the barges can come here and fill up.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, where I was up in Bethel, it's negative 30 sometimes with a wind chill on top of that. And Kuskokwim River, where I worked in the fishing industry up there, and
it's cold.
It was the river was 1.5 miles wide at Bethel, and it was frozen over until the middle of May.
Yeah, that's wild.
It wouldn't break up. We would always have there was a pool on the exact time that the river would break.
Of course there was. Yes.
What else do you have to do when the
Exactly.
Well, we were just working on stuff and waiting for the ice to break so we could start fishing.
Yep. Well, for me, I haven't been doing too much, just doing some orders, doing a bunch of stuff around the house and stuff like that. Actually went to the zoo. We had like our last nice day before it gets unbearably hot here. So we went to the zoo and that was nice. But yeah, not much, just taking care of some orders. Still working on a couple of prototypes I can't talk about right now, but one of them looks interesting. So one of them was a complete failure. So we're back to the drawing board, But anyway, so that's really about it. Yeah, it's been nice. Been enjoying the spring. I still have a bunch of work to do around the house, and hopefully I'm going to get to that next week. Just odds and end type stuff. One of the things my wife wants me to do is replace a door. One of our exterior doors is getting a little worse for wear, so I got to buy a new door and put that in, but that shouldn't be too a pain.
Nice.
As I say that now. Yeah. Well, all I need to do is take it off the hinges and everything else, so it shouldn't be too bad. I'm not going to try to replace all that kind of stuff, but that's about it. But besides that, Deneb, what are you working on in your shop?
I've got 3 6-board chests that I'm working on for my daughters, and then I'm just about to tear into my house and do a basically complete remodel. Put in some wood, some wide pine wood floors, and add a deck out the back and rewire everything because I've got a mix of not knob and tube, but wire, cloth wrapped wiring from the 30s and 40s, and then up to crappy Romex from the 70s and 80s.
Oh man, you're singing the tune, man. If you haven't listened to the previous episodes, this old house that I talk about is a house my son bought on the coast of Lake Erie, on the west coast of Lake Erie.
Wow.
Built in 1917.
Nice.
What we have uncovered is everything you just talked about.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. My house was built in the late 20s, early 30s, something like that.
Generally the same time. Yeah, it's wild what happens from here to there.
Yeah, I mean, I've got like almost 10-foot ceilings in my basement, and it's a full concrete poured basement. So that's awesome, amazing. But
heck yeah,
it's just I am well past due time to update everything.
My dad's a retired electrician. He's been rewiring this house for going on 2.5 months now. But we ripped everything out to the panel and replaced the panel.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest thing I have to do is the rewire, because
you might as well recover your walls because you're going to be cutting into them so far.
I'm just going to go around about 4 feet up.
Yep, just rip it all out.
House, rip that all out. Get the new wiring in, and then I'll start putting things back.
Absolutely. That's a plan. That's a good plan.
That is cool. Are you going to be doing all the work yourself, or are you going to bring in
I
a contract?
do as much as I can. I mean, I've got some friends that'll help me out here and there, but it's gotta do it myself.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll have to start charging more for tools.
Exactly. Well, I'm sure, if you make some deals, there'll be a whole bunch of people coming over. Probably not the right people, but yeah. Well, with that, Deneb, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how'd you get into woodworking in the first place?
Well, I've had a pretty well-traveled life. I was born in Maui, Hawaii.
Okay.
The parents went to Maui when my mom was about 8 months pregnant. They were living on a old farmhouse in the hills outside of Rockland, Maine, and that winter of 68 into 69, it was they had one of the worst winters that they've had in line. There was like 5 or 6 feet of snow around the house. You couldn't go out of the bottom floor doors. They were jumping out 2 second-story windows to get out of this place, and they had some money catch up with them, and they walked down into Rockland, got on a bus, went to Boston, and got on a plane and went to Maui. Born a month later. So I think I might have had something to do with that.
I imagine so.
But that we lived there for a couple of years and then moved to Sausalito, California. And we were out there for about 5 or 6 years. We moved to Maine when I was 7. And while my parents were out there, my dad learned to build wooden boats. And so when we moved to Maine, he started up a school building for building wooden boats. Just a small thing. He had probably 5 or 6 students at any given time. And so that was my first exposure to woodworking. I was 6, 7 years old, and he'd shove me off in a corner because he didn't want me anywhere near the equipment that could have eaten me.
Yep.
Shoved me off in a corner with some blocks of wood and some hand tools, and I made big pieces of wood into little pieces of wood.
Yep.
And I learned real fast that sharp tools did that better than dull tools. So I had to learn how to sharpen. And so I got exposed to it very, very early. I had my first job in construction when I was like 12 or 13. Just kind of a job site rat, running around cutting stuff to length and doing whatever stuff needed to be done. But then that gave me a skill set that I was able to carry through all my younger years as I was getting out into the world. And if I went somewhere, told somebody I was from Maine, I had a job the second the word came out of my mouth. And so I had gotten a background in boat building and in carpentry and construction. So I was going all over the place working. When I got out of college, I went to Arizona State for school. Wanted to play baseball, but that didn't work out. So ended up moving on, and I ended up going to Alaska for the summers and working in the fishing industry up there. And so in the winters, I would come back down, and I ended up going to Florida for the winters, and I started working in wooden boat yards down in Florida. There was a place I found in the Tampa St. Pete area, that specialized in refurbishing old trumpies. It's like a Chris Craft.
Okay.
Similar lines as the old Chris Crafts. And we would do anywhere from 50 to 60 foot trumpies. And so these were double planked mahogany hulls on mahogany frames. Might have been oak, but I think a lot of mahogany in these things. And so it was routine that we would have to strip all the planks off, reframe stuff, replank. So I was cutting in planks and caulking it in and seaming everything, and then they realized that I was pretty good with the finished stuff, so they put me into custom interiors on the boats and doing all the bright work trim on the top sides. But it was all at every step of the way that I went, in whether it was in carpentry or in boat building. Anytime I went on a job site, I was usually one of the youngest guys there, and I'd have 50 pounds of hand tools strapped to my belt and my tool belt, and everybody there would be laughing at me for all the old fashioned tools I had. And within a day, they were asking me to come do something because they didn't want to run across the shop or across the yard to get something done. And so it just really, that early experience I had with hand tools and getting things sharp really took me into my later years. And when I was about 27, I decided I wanted to just sort of refine some of my skills. As I could do everything, but I'd never really done dovetails, and the mortise and tenon stuff was pretty rudimentary and whatever. And so I was looking around. This is in 1997, and there really weren't a lot of options at that point for woodworking schools. Most of the places you could go was like Fort Bennett, can't remember, in Boston, the Bennett Street.
Oh yeah, Bennett Street, yeah, North Bennett Street.
North Bennett Street was a 2-year program. The College of the Redwoods with Krenoff was a 2-year program. Anything else was at least a year, or it was just like a little workshop that you were going to, and you can get some stuff out of that, but not what I wanted. And it was early in the internet days, so I was stumbling around on the internet, and I found the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship. Peter Korn had just started that school a few years before that, and he was offering a 9-month or a 3-month program, a 12-week program, and that was perfect for me because I just went to my boss where I was working. I'm like, I'm gonna take 3 months and go to this school, and when I come back, I'll be better for it, you know. And so he was all for it for me. He didn't pay me to go, but I went to CFC, and it turns out that it was half an hour from where I grew up. So when we moved back to Maine, we moved to Mid-Coast Maine, and Newcastle, Damascotta is the area where I lived, and CFC is over in West Rockport, which is about half an hour from where I grew up. It's about 10 minutes from the Toolworks. So all of this stuff was right there. And when I was growing up in Maine, when I was 17, there were no opportunities for kids growing up in rural Maine. There was some stuff going on in Portland and some of the cities around, but if you wanted to live in it where I grew up, you didn't have a whole lot of options. So most of the kids that I grew up with just got out, left the state. They were gone, never came back, or came back much later when they started having kids, like I did. I swore when I was 17, you'd never see me back in the state of Maine, but I've always ended up back here somehow. Especially once I got married and had kids, I wasn't going to raise kids anywhere else. And when I came back to Maine at that point, I'd had some experience teaching at the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship, and that's actually where I met Tom Lie-Nielsen, because we would do tours of the Toolworks, because it's, like I said, 10 minutes away from school. And so I met him when I was there originally, and then I went back and I was an assistant instructor for the summer, and then I was what they called the artist in residence. Now they call it a remember what they call it. They have another name for it, but you're basically there, part
like
of
a fellowship or something.
That's what they're called.
Okay.
So the fellowship program took over that, and now they've got, I think, 4 or 5 buildings on the campus. And when I was there, it was just the one. And we had the bench room and the machine room, and now they've got 3 or 4 other buildings that are all sort of duplicates of that original. And it's an amazing place. They really, what I really liked about it myself is that it didn't have a set philosophy. They were just teaching you how to make stuff. Right. Yeah. And like at North Bennett Street, you're making period furniture or instruments. If you went to Krenov, you're making Krenov style stuff, which is beautiful and amazing, but it's a very specific style. I mean, I can look at people's work now and tell you if they went to North Bennett Street or if they went to the College of the Redwoods. And you can't, that's not quite the same with CFC, because it's more about building skill set and letting people explore their own path, because they have all guest instructors. Yeah, so and don't real nice crossover of people teaching. And now they offer a 9-month program as well as the 12 weeks. Yeah, we've had some guests on that have taught out there and stuff like that. And that's what I was going to ask you. I think they have longer programs now, but they still have the shorter programs too. Yeah. So they do all summer. They do 1 and 2 week workshops, and then starting picking up in the fall, they do 3-month programs, and then they also have the 9-month going consecutive with the 3-month program. So it's a pretty cool thing. They're getting, and I think they used to have about 12 students per section. Yeah. And then they have the fellowship room going on as well. And those folks, you can apply for a fellowship program there, and put in, say what you want to build, how much time you want to be there, and you either get accepted or not. So that's a really cool thing too, because the thing I really loved about it is you get exposed to, like when I was in my 12-week program, we each did 3 major projects. Each month had a major project piece. So I was exposed to the 3 instructors that I had and their knowledge base and information, but then I was also exposed to the 11 other projects going on in that month. And we were encouraged to problem solve with each other, so that you really get this, you feed off each other, and you learn way more that way than just sitting in a room by yourself.
That makes perfect sense, because your other students may be doing something that's totally different joinery or design or whatever, and you can kind of learn from them. So if you're ever building something similar to that, you've got some of that knowledge.
And then when I was there as the artist in residence, I was there for the 3 different segments that was there. So I got exposed again. They had exposure to what I was working on, but then I had the exposure to each of those people. And part of my responsibilities was to be an available assistant to anything going on. So I've always found that I learn more by teaching than I do by doing, because if I have to teach somebody else how to do something, I have to have a real firm grip of what it is I'm doing. And I have to have really thought it through very clearly and be able to pass on information in a way that people can then duplicate it and have success. And so you can't just half-ass it. You gotta really have a command of what you're trying to share. Otherwise, you're not helping that person.
Right.
That's one of the biggest problems I have with a lot of the online content that's out there. Is a lot of it's just there to get views. It's not really there to instruct and share knowledge. It's hey, look at me, look at what I'm doing. And if they're not doing it well, then people that see it that don't know any better think that's the way it should be done. And it can be a real detriment in a lot of ways. I mean, we have people all the time that make decisions on tools without talking to us. And most of the time they choose the wrong tool, or they choose the wrong approach to what they're doing, because they're going off of what they've read or seen or heard, not off of any kind of an experiential basis. And that's a tough thing, because they spend money that they didn't need to, and don't have the success that they could. And I think people that are putting that content out there really should think about it a little bit more, about what it is they're doing. They're putting it can cost some people a lot of money if you steer them the wrong way.
I think I remember
being in the craft.
I think I remember at one show I forgot what I was wanting to buy, and I was talking to you. I think it was a high angle bed for a number 3 or something like that. And you go, well, what are you doing with that? And I told you, and you go, you don't need that.
I mean, I don't want people to buy stuff.
Exactly.
It's not going to help them.
Exactly.
I mean, that's not what it's about. People don't have success and enjoyment in what they're doing.
Right.
They're not going to do it.
Exactly. Exactly. But that's always stuck in my mind, because I go, I know Lie-Nielsen, not only yourself, but the company is just it's just fantastic. They want you to succeed, and they're not going to sell you something that's not going to work for you. So if you're looking for something, make sure you call them up, talk to them, let them know what you're trying to do, and they'll point you in the right direction. With that, so how did you get started with Lie-Nielsen? You mentioned when you were there, you met Tom.
I met Tom when I was at CFC, and then when I moved back into the area, it was 1999 when I was there for the artist in residency and the instructing portion. When I finished up at the end of the summer, or I guess it was February in 2000 when I was done at the school, or somewhere in that range. And the woman who's my wife now had graduated from college at that point and taken a job as the teacher on Monhegan Island. It's a one-room schoolhouse, and it was a 2-year commitment. So I moved out there with her, and she was teaching and I was living out on the island doing lobstering and doing carpentry work and whatever else I could do to bring in some money. And we were out there I was there for 1.5 years. She was there for 2 years. And when we came off the island, decided to move down to Florida because she'd never been outside of the state of Maine. And I'd spent a bunch of time down in Florida, going to Alaska, because I'd be bouncing back and forth between the two. And basically I was like, where do you want to go? She didn't really know. And I said, I got a bunch of friends down in St. Pete. Let's go there. And when we decided to move down there, Tom asked if I would be willing to travel around and do, at that time, it was the woodworking show circuit. And they did anywhere from 25 to 35 shows a year. It was something crazy. And so he asked if I'd be willing to do those shows and do demos and teach people how to use the tools and sell tools. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to, but I'm moving to Florida. And he said, that's not a problem. I could travel out of Tampa. It actually made it easier. So I would, over the winter season, from September to May, I would be traveling every weekend, going to different events around different shows around the country, and some up in Canada and all over the place. And then in the summer, I'd come back here to Maine, and I'd work at the shop for the summer months, because it was just something fun to do. And then when the show season picked up again, head back down to St. Pete and start doing it again.
Yeah, that's the first time I saw you was at one of those woodworking shows in Houston.
Yeah, there you go.
You were showing sharpening and demoing some tools, and I went, this is the most laid back guy I've ever met.
You're soothing,
but because there were just tons of people, all this noise and stuff, and you're just calmly going, this is how you do it.
Yeah, there was all those things.
And all the other vendors at that place, they're just barking at you,
screaming at you through a microphone.
Yeah,
that always drove me nuts. But it'd be 10, 15 people deep around the booth, just because we had information for people.
Exactly.
That's something people wanted to learn, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that a lot. We did those shows for about 6 years, and then realized that they were just killing it, and they took away all the educational stuff that went along with those, and then we decided to start doing the hand tool events that we reached up till. And we did those from 2006 up to 2019. When COVID hit was when we had to stop.
Yep. Yeah. I went to a number of those in the Houston area and stuff like that. I think y'all had a bunch at Clark Kellogg's place, and then a bunch, and then you had one somewhere else. But
we did one at a local lumber yard.
Yeah, that's the first one I went to. Yeah,
and that was he did a lot of urban timber reclaiming kind of thing. It was a neat space, but Clark's was a better location for us.
Yeah, and both of them got tons of traffic and stuff like that. Always had a good time there, and I think I met a whole bunch of people going to those events. So I encourage anybody to go to those. Now, are y'all still doing? Are y'all doing some of the shows that are now picking up?
We started in 2024. We did a few. We did a couple events, and then we did 8 in 2025, 2026. And we are, unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to be able to do any in the coming year. Just things are so out of balance right now. We would get good crowds, but people just weren't spending money because I don't know what's coming or going.
Yeah.
So we can't. I mean, we had to cancel one of our events out in San Francisco because that was with that November government shutdown, and they were canceling flights.
Right.
We had no idea if we were going to be able to get out there or get back. So we just had to cancel the event, and it's unfortunate because it's a really it's a powerful thing for all the reasons you just mentioned. For us, it's an opportunity to get our tools in people's hands in locations where they might not otherwise have a chance to do that unless they happen to know somebody that has them. But it gives you, as somebody coming to the event, the opportunity to see us and people we've invited as guest demonstrators, but also just the other people that come to the event that are
Right.
there as attendees. You meet some amazing people that can be some of the best woodworkers in your area, because you might never know they were there if you didn't run into them at one of the events and see and strike up a conversation. So we hope we can keep them going again. And we had every intention of doing about 4 events in the fall, and 4 events in the spring, and just keep going. We weren't going to go back to the 20 or 25 a year that we did before.
Right.
We were going to try to do between 6 and 8 shows a year, just to keep that exposure out there. And
now, I know in Texas you have, is it Curtis, right?
Curtis Turner he lives in the Austin area.
Yeah.
So he does, there's the Texas Woodworking Show,
right,
is I think it's in the fall.
Yeah, it's this September. In fact, we just had Austin on the previous show to this to talk
nice.
about that. Yeah, we usually go out there and help, and I usually MC that.
Nice.
So I run into those guys all the time. Yeah, Curtis and stuff.
That's been a good event, and
he talked me into the number 51.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, you just sit there and go.
Doesn't take much talking into it. But I always tell people with that one is don't try it unless you're ready to buy one.
Exactly.
Push that thing. It's just like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah, Deneb, I don't know if you were there. I used to go to the one that was at the Philadelphia Seaport Museum, the boat museum right on the water there.
I never made it to that event. I always wanted to go to that one because I love the seaports. It's just in my blood. I'm quite sure I would have been a sailor back in the day, but
yeah, I mean, it was just, they walk in there, recreating an entire ship inside, and then the show actually was in the boat shop. So would have been right up your alley. I think I met Matt Bickford there, actually.
Matt used to go to that one.
Yeah.
We did an event in Newport, Rhode Island, at a place called Iris, the International Yacht Restoration School, and they had a similar kind of setup there. And I've been to the Wooden Boat Festival in Port Townsend. We did one at Mystic. We did a few events at Mystic Seaport, and I never made it to the one in Philadelphia, though. I always wanted to hit that one.
Now, did you ever make a boat for yourself?
I've made a few boats.
Boats?
I've never made one specifically for myself.
Okay.
But I've built a bunch.
Yeah, I figured you had. I just wondered if somewhere back behind you was there a boat or a canoe or something like that hanging out?
No. What is the cobblers kids?
Cobbler kids have no shoes.
Yeah.
So
no shoes for the shoemaker.
Yeah, exactly.
I do have some plans to make what's called a Monhegan skiff.
Okay.
At some point, I want to do that. It's just a small lap strake 12-foot skiff, that just a rowing dinghy. And they're just it's a nice, fun project. It's something that could be done pretty easy. I could get one done over a winter pretty easily.
Nice. We'll look forward to that. Well, so how long have you been with Lie-Nielsen now? It's got to be.
I've been with Lie-Nielsen for 25 years.
Wow.
All right.
So, so what is
adult life?
So what does a typical day look like for you at this point?
It varies.
Well, that's nice.
Everybody at Lie-Nielsen, we only have 65 employees.
Yep.
So
Okay.
we're nowhere near as big as most people think we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very small company. It's one of the bigger employers in Mid-Coast Maine. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a fairly small company. And that 65 people is everybody from the housekeeper to up through Tom as the president and owner. So everybody has to wear a lot of hats. Nobody does one thing.
Right.
And I've been there long enough. I've done a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I just sort of plug holes where they're needed. I travel and do events and instructional stuff. But when I'm not needed in either our customer service area or out on the shop floor somewhere doing something, I've been doing a lot of the facilities maintenance around the place because I can do all the work and we don't have to pay somebody else to do it. So,
Sure.
like over the past two summers, I've replaced most of the windows in our main shop area, the main where sort of the office spaces are and that, and reclabbered about half the building, painted the whole outside of the building, and moved into the other main shop, and I put in a whole system for coolant delivery for our CNC machines because we had guys who were just carrying around 5-gallon buckets, or we had a big 75-gallon tank that on wheels that you could roll around. So you'd have to wait half an hour, 45 minutes to fill this tank up with water, and then put the coolant mix in,
Right.
pull it over to the machine that needed to be changed out, and pump that all in. So I mean, it was 2 or 3 hour process to change over one machine for coolant and everything. And so I put in this a system that has a big 250-gallon reservoir tank. There's a water pump there, an RO system that filters the water. So we're putting neutral water into the machines, which makes it a lot easier for us to control the percentages of mix. So we're not getting, it's not too rich, it's not too light. It's where you can really keep things, because we have a lot of problems. If we just run straight water into the machines, we have a lot of rust problems and tarnishing
corrosion
things, just minerals and stuff that get brought in. So it was always a fight to keep that and to keep algae and stuff from growing in the coolant tanks at the machines. So there's a mixer that we draw water from with a pump from the 250-gallon reservoir, and there's a mixing valve that you can set for different percentages of coolant to feed in, and that all goes to a PEX line that runs up to the ceiling and out, and then there's drops to each machine. So you can do that. We use 2 different types of coolant. One is for the CNC mills and one is for the grinders. So there's 2 lines. One's a blue line, one's a white line. Blue line goes to the CNCs, the white line goes to the grinders, and you just flip a valve to send whichever one through the mixing valve. And that whole system, now you just go to the machine you need. There's a hose dropping with a little spray nozzle. You spray out what you need, switch over to, if you're doing CNC, you switch it for one. If you're doing grinders, you do another, and it just all feeds all over the building. And I redid all the air lines in the building so that we have just a cleaner system. If I don't know if you've ever been to our shop and done the shop tour, but years ago, 10, 15 years ago, if you walked through the shop, we had over 80 Bridgeport milling machines. Most of them from World War II era. They were in the shop in functional use every day. We were using them every day. We started to transition over to CNCs, and when we did that, we were able to contain a lot of the dust and everything. So we made a real concerted effort to just clean up the shop, make it a more enjoyable workspace. So when you walk through the shop now, we have people that have worked in machine shops for 20 years that come through, and they're just like, "Oh my God, how do you keep this place so clean?" And it's the people that work there now are a little spoiled because that's all they've ever experienced.
Right.
They used to be, if you walked through that shop, you came out just black like a coal miner.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, so for Lie-Nielsen's tools, so tell us a little bit about how they're manufactured. Are you all doing all the foundry work and all of that, or do y'all do y'all outsource that?
When Tom first started in 1981, he had to teach himself. He was just doing it all by himself. He had to teach himself to be a pattern maker. He had to teach himself how to do the foundry work. He had to teach himself how to be a machinist and do all the woodwork to make the handles and knobs, the polishing, everything. And that wasn't what he trained for, so he taught himself how to do it. So from 1981 to 1987, he was just kind of building up that process and getting things to where he could work. And he was making the number 95, the edge plane, the right-hand edge plane. He started adding some of the other tools that had been discontinued in the 30s, like the scraper plane, the 140. Like he started with the 95, the 140, and I think the scraper plane was one of the, or either that or the chisel plane. All some of the most difficult planes to make, and they were all made out of bronze because bronze melts at about 1700 degrees. So you can do that in your barn.
Right.
Iron melts at about 3000 degrees. So you need a lot more energy to do that. And so he didn't use iron originally because he could do everything out of bronze and do it himself. In 1987, he moved into the building we're in now, and we've expanded on it quite a bit over the past 20-something years. But he moved in there, and he took on an employee and gradually grew that up. But by 1990-ish, 92, he was making probably 7 or 8 different tools, and he had introduced iron. And at that point, the demand for tools was starting to get big enough that he really couldn't do everything in-house anymore. So there was a foundry in central Maine, in Lewiston, that does ductile iron casting. So he approached them because he wanted to do iron tools, like the 60 and the 62 and the 60 and a half were some of the first ones he introduced. And he wanted to do those, so he found somebody that could do it. And at the same time, he was looking for a bronze foundry that could start pouring at least the body cast. So we still did the frogs and caps in-house for quite a while. But then that eventually it just got, again, too much to do that effectively in-house. So it all got turned over to a bronze foundry down in New Hampshire. We've had some issues with the quality of castings that we can get from those guys. It's been a real struggle ever since COVID. Really, we haven't been able to get good stuff from them. And so you'll notice if you look on our website, bronze tools are almost always out of stock. And during COVID, we had to focus on basically 10 or 11 tools out of 150 that we were making before COVID hit. Because the demand for tools, for hand tools, was so high that we had to just focus on what we consider the core tools, the tools you need to make stuff. And we couldn't really do any of the extraneous sort of more specialized things.
So you're talking bench planes, chisels, those type of things, right?
And we focused on very specific ones so that we could just get them through and tried to keep them in stock as much as we could. And then as we started to be able to catch up a little on that, we've added over the past couple of years. We've added pretty much everything we ever used to make has been back into production. But some of them we only do a couple batches a year. We don't necessarily, if we don't sell a lot of them, we're not gonna stop making something we sell a lot of to make something we barely ever ship. So we started doing the notification system rather than taking back orders, because for some stuff we had no idea when we were going to get to it. So we didn't take a back order and have somebody sitting there like, hey, where's my plane? So we started having people just click a little button on our website that said notify me when available, and that built us a nice list of what people wanted.
Yeah.
So when we would make some, we would send out notifications to the first, if we made 100 tools, we sent out a notification of the first 100 people that they were available on the website. And that worked great for a couple of years. And then we got lists that were 5,000 people deep. So some of those people are never going to get a notification that the tool is there. Then we started introducing back orders, because anything that we know we're going to have available within a week or two of it going out of stock, we allow a back order to be placed on the website. Any of the stuff that is on the website but not that we don't really know when we're going to get to it, that still has the notification system for it. If there's something you really want in that area, you can give us a call and we can let you know if it's coming soon enough that we can put a back order in. But we're trying not to let those back order lists get too big. If we let people back order everything on the website, there's some tools like a number 7 or a number 8. We just don't get very many castings from a batch. When the foundry sends us a batch of castings, it's maybe 100 tools, maybe.
Right.
And we've got notification lists 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 deep on those tools. So if we let back orders happen, we'd have 500 or 600 back orders in a month or two, and we'd never catch up.
Right.
So if we're close enough to running a batch through, we'll manually add a back order in for people. But otherwise, we just recommend that people call back soon.
That's right. Well, with that, are y'all putting efforts into developing new tools, or is it to the point now where y'all have all you can handle with the catalog you have now?
We've got probably 10 or 15 tools we want to make.
Okay.
But we use all the same equipment to do everything. So if we already can't produce what we're doing, we've always done, we can't add new stuff until we're caught up to a point. And some of that is the reason that we will be able to get to doing new stuff again is that it's not just what we're able to do. It's also what can the foundries produce for us? What are we, like the bronze stuff, we just can't get decent castings from the foundry we've worked with for decades. And so there's things we just can't make, or like we don't have any, we're really low on high angle frogs right now. You wanted to get one.
Yeah.
So it's not something we can really offer to people, because when we are out of the ones that we have, you'll notice they're not, if you go look for high angle frogs on the website, they're not listed anywhere, because we can't have anybody order one of those, because when we're out of these, we don't know when we're going to get more.
Right. That makes sense.
So we have to parcel them out to people that really need them, not people that are going to throw them up on a shelf somewhere and forget they had it. Which happens all the time.
Yeah. Well, you have to deal with people that are users and people that are collectors too.
Yeah, there is some of that. I mean, it's surprisingly, I would say the percentage of users is surprisingly high.
Yes,
compared to the number of collectors. There are a lot of collectors out there, but most people that collect our tools also use them.
Yeah,
they're just that good.
Yeah. I guess a couple of months ago we had David Lancaster on, and he was like, I have every Lie-Nielsen tool that was ever made.
Well,
He does. He does.
yeah, he stops by every couple of weeks and gets something else.
Yeah. You got to have duplicates. I think he has
Yeah.
like,
Well, he's
he's
got plenty.
Yeah, 3 or 4 hand-powered table saws, all kinds of weird stuff. But
Yeah, he's a neat guy. He's got a lot of cool stuff.
yeah, he does. Well, so tell us, for our listeners out there, what are some of the aspects of Lie-Nielsen tools that most of them don't realize? I mean, I know y'all have done some traditional designs, but kind of married that with, new techniques and actually made these traditional tools better, so to speak.
Well, there's nothing that we make that is just a direct copy of the Stanley original. The biggest change I think that Tom made was the material that's being used. There are a lot of subtle differences, just in machining tolerances, the ways that things are done, and adding efficiencies that could have been added years ago. But Stanley was never in the business of making great tools. They were in the business of making a lot
of tools.
Yeah. In their peak, they were making between 50 and 60,000 planes a week.
Oh my God.
We might make that in a year.
Yeah.
Everything that we do.
Yeah.
So it's the idea that you go buy an old Stanley and you're getting some piece of amazing craftsmanship is just not true.
Right.
You might get one that's pretty good, but you're going to have to do a lot of work to that tool to get it functional.
Yes, you are.
Which means you need to know what you're doing to get that tool to be functional. And so where most people fall down with this stuff is they don't know what they're even looking for, and they're trying to get something that won't work properly to do something that they don't know what they're doing. So it's just a recipe for disaster, and that ends up making people really frustrated with the craft, and they think that, oh, hand tools, it takes forever to work with hand tools. You can't get anything done. They don't work. They don't this and that. So the biggest thing that Tom did when he started making the Lie-Nielsen tools, and the reason that he did this is he was working for Garrett Wade right out of college, out of New York City, and it was before the internet, so you didn't have options for stuff. When the Garrett Wade catalog showed up on your doorstep, that was like, well, it was nirvana. I mean, here was all this amazing stuff that you couldn't find anywhere locally. Even if you had a great local hardware store, you weren't getting some high-end tool from Germany. You were getting whatever was carried in the local hardware store. So what Tom realized early on was that the hand tools they were getting were the best quality that you could buy. They were selling the Stanley planes being made in the old record factory in the UK. That's where the tools that were getting sourced for Garrett Wade. But they were awful. They weren't flat. They weren't square. The surface machining was they were using a belt sander to grind the bases flat and the sides square. There was just no care whatsoever into anything. They didn't stress relieve anything. Stuff moved all over the place. So people were just constantly sending things back of what was supposedly the best that you could get. And there was one guy named Ken Wisner, working out of Long Island. He was a retired machinist. He was making the 95 right, which is why Tom started with that plane.
Right.
He was making the 95 right, and just basically out of his garage. And he was selling it through Garrett Wade, because you couldn't just put something out on eBay. You had to have an outlet for stuff. And so Tom recognized that here's something that had been discontinued by Stanley, that the only way you could get one was finding an old one and restoring it, or getting one of Ken's. And Ken decided he didn't want to do it anymore. So Tom saw the opportunity. he talked to Gary Chen, the owner of Garrett Wade, and got an agreement that Gary would basically just keep doing it, keep selling whatever Tom could make, just like he was for Ken. And Tom went and met with Ken Weisner, worked out how to do everything, and started teaching himself how to do everything, do all this stuff. But he did it because there wasn't an option. So he knew that if he could get that plane dialed in, then there was this whole suite of tools that Stanley had discontinued that you couldn't get. Not to mention the tools that Stanley was already making that they just didn't care about. They weren't making a tool; they were making a tool-shaped object.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's when he started doing this, he looked at everything. He looked at every piece of it, and he decided to make stuff either out of manganese bronze or ductile iron because they're malleable materials. They have some movement to them, but they also have a memory. So they're not gonna, once you heat treat or once you stress relieve them after they've been poured and once you get the casting from the foundry and it gets heat treated, it's now going to be no stress to it, so it wants to stay wherever you machine it. So that was the way they used to do it, by what they called seasoning. They would have a stack of castings out in the back lot behind the factory, and they would go grab castings off that stack whenever they wanted. In theory, they would be leaving them out there for a year, so they would go through the 4 seasons.
Okay.
Wow.
But they needed so many castings that they couldn't, our castings are all baked in an oven after they get knocked out of the molds, and that's the stress relieving. The foundry is baking them in an oven before they send them to us. They cut them off the tree and get them stress relieved, and then they come to us. That wasn't a realistic option for Stanley because they needed so many of these things. They couldn't have a dedicated oven to do that. So they shoved them outside and let them sit in the weather and hope that they
hope for the best.
That's crazy.
Middle of the pile wasn't going to have the same kind of stress relieving as stuff on the outside, because it works. The heat changes, all that. It gets the stresses out of the tool. But they also didn't leave them out there for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, they were making 50 or 60,000 planes a week. They couldn't wait for a pile to be done for a year. They just grabbed it when they needed it. So those were the 2 biggest changes, was using appropriate materials, because gray iron, which is what Stanley used to use and what most plane makers use because it was cheap, you drop when it breaks. It's very brittle. It's not that malleable material. So he not only used an appropriate material that wasn't going to fail, he also made everything thicker, all the sidewalls thicker, heavier, just improved the mass, the feel of the tool in the hand, the presence in the hand, made all the blades thicker. Any blade was double, almost triple the thickness of the Stanley originals. Took the time to figure out the appropriate heat treating process for the blades so that you could get a consistent Rockwell hardness of 60 to 62 rather than just whatever the hell comes out. A lot of people think that high carbon steel is a better option than A2 steel for sharpening purposes, but typically it's easier to sharpen high carbon steel, O1 or W1 blades, because they tend to be softer. You don't get the consistency of heat treat when you're dipping in something into a liquid to quench and possibly even to heat treat. So it's really hard to get, if you do a batch of 100 blades, it's hard to guarantee that they're all going to be in that 60 to 62 range. So it's, especially if you don't care if they're that hard. So, most of those high carbon steel blades are more closer to the 56 to 58 Rockwell hardness. So it's softer. When you have a high carbon steel that's in that 60 to 62 range, I would challenge almost anybody to tell me which blade was A2 and which one was high carbon steel in terms of which one was easier to sharpen.
Right.
Because it's the hardness that makes it difficult. It's not the makeup of the steel. There are some little things in A2 with some chromium and some other things that make it feel a little different on a stone than the high carbon steel. And if all you've ever sharpened all your life is high carbon steel, anything different is going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what results you get, it's going to be bad because it's not what you're used to. Different is always bad for most people, unless you're looking for something different and looking for advantages, and then you see every advantage that's possible. So for us, the main reason we switched to the A2 steel is that we could get consistent results in the Rockwell hardness of 60 to 62.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the nature of the A2 steel, it does hold an edge a little bit better than the O1 does, or the W1, which is what we used to use. But again, at the end of the day, I know one person that can look at a piece of steel and tell me if it's high carbon steel or A2, and that's Michelle Ariu.
Okay.
Grew up chewing on steel.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was just incredible. He would just look at a blade. Oh yeah, no, that's a one. No. I'm like, how do you even? How can you? And he was right every single
time. Yeah.
These are blades that are already polished, already ground. They look exactly. But he could tell without fail one from the other.
That's amazing. Well, let me ask you this, since we're on steels and stuff like that. You've taught a lot of people how to sharpen.
Well, let me finish one other thing.
Sure.
But in terms of what Tom did with
sure,
and the benefits that you're getting from the Lie-Nielsen. With any tool that you got in the past, whether it was a brand new one or an older one, the first thing you had to do was figure out what was wrong with it and do what's called fettling, tuning up the tool, get it to a workable state. And Tom decided that didn't need to happen. So he started grinding to a tolerance of 1 to 1.5 thousandths of an inch or better for flat and square, which is a ridiculous tolerance for woodworking.
Mm-hmm.
Can't get anything to stay within 1 or 1.5 thou of flat or square or anything. As soon as you cut it, it's going to move, it's going to change, it's going to be. But what he was doing was giving you a reference tool in your hand. You had the confidence that when you pick up a Lie-Nielsen tool, it's ready to use. It is going to function. All you have to do is sharpen the blade and set the tool up for what you want it to do and get to work.
Mm-hmm.
So we do all of the fettling at the machines as the parts are moving through the shop. So when something comes off the mill, it's not done. It's close, but it needs to be finished. It needs to be fettled to be ready to go on the tool and not have a hard, sharp edge somewhere that's going to cut you, or that's not going to quite ride smoothly enough to give you a clean adjustment for the depth, and just all the little things that most people never think of.
Yeah, or have the knowledge to do.
Or even know what they're doing.
Right.
And make it worse.
So that's all done before that tool even goes in the box. So when you get that and open that plane up, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. But the real beauty in that tool is the functionality of it. It is there, ready to use, ready to go as soon as you pick it up.
Yeah, that makes some sense. Now, I think it might be worth revisiting before we started recording. Unfortunately, you were talking about the pricing of Lie-Nielsen tools. So tell us a little bit about that and how it's been over the last decade plus. Yeah.
So Tom made a decision early on that he wanted his tools to be able to be used by craftsmen. He had to sell them at a certain point to be able to be in business. But there was no benchmark. Nobody was doing what he was doing. So he had to basically create the price point for high-end hand plane. And he made whatever decisions, however he came to the choice of price, but it was more based on what he thought people would be willing to pay than what it costs to make that tool. But most importantly, because he had established that price point, he felt obligated to hold that price over time. And so if you look at a catalog from 1999 and look at our 2019 catalog, which is the last one we printed, if you see tools that are in both catalogs, the price point is typically going to be between $5 and $10 difference, and no more than that. So over a 35 or 40-year period, we were able to hold our price point at basically what Tom established it at 45 years ago. We didn't make a wholesale price change until about 2022. And the impetus for that was we were starting to do some cost analysis of what it actually costs us to make. But what really triggered it is when Russia invaded the Ukraine, the majority of, or a large percentage of the world's iron ore comes from either Russia or Ukraine. Right. And so the price of iron ore quadrupled in 2 weeks, kind of like what's happening with oil right now because of the Strait of Hormuz.
Yep.
So we had no choice but to raise our price because our foundry was raising the price for the castings. Every provider we have for raw materials was raising their prices. So we had no choice but to raise our price. But even with that, we only raised it 15 or 20% from what the catalog prices are in 2019. There's a few tools that we realized we were just completely taking a bath on, a little bit more percentage wise than that, but very, very few. And one of the biggest ways that we were able to do that is over time, starting really around 2008, we started eliminating wholesaling and doing more direct to customer sales. At first, it was kind of necessary to have some wholesale outlets just to make sure that our name was getting out there. But once people knew what Lie-Nielsen tools are and what we're doing, it became less of a necessity. But in order to hold the price down, we couldn't sell through wholesalers. So we had to sell as much direct as possible. So that's part with COVID, we couldn't do anything wholesale because we just couldn't produce enough tools even to satisfy the demand for people ordering straight from us. And so it was an opportunity to really reanalyze everything and start from a new place. But it was really important to Tom to keep the price as low as possible so that people can still have these tools on their bench. That's much more important than anything else.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, what comes to mind to me is
money. We have to be able to stay in business. But
right.
we don't have to make 100% profit on every tool we make.
Right, of course. So, like, I know, like, does Highland still carry your tools?
Highland is the only domestic wholesaler we have because Tom's worked with Chris Bagby for 40-something years.
And that's the only one that comes to mind, and that totally makes sense. And otherwise,
he
it's
wasn't
all
going to
like
turn his back on Chris, because that's not who Tom is.
Right.
But it was we are not able to send Highland as many tools as we would like because we have to make sure we're taking care of the direct customers first.
Yeah, I mean that's first for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I tell you what tool I really love, and it's kind of outside the hand plate, but the dovetail vise is so nice. Those vices are really nice.
When we started making workbenches 20-something years ago, whatever it was, I can't even remember how long ago it was that we started doing benches. We were using some hardware that was being made in Germany. It was the best readily available hardware that you get for a tail vise and a shoulder vise. But it wasn't particularly good, and it was made out of gray iron. So we started having problems with parts breaking on the face vise, particularly the shoulder vise. And so decided to make our own hardware because there was nothing else out there. And we went with a twin screw vise for what is the face vise, the shoulder vise, and also is used for the dovetail vise.
Yeah.
And then we made up a tail vise as well. And it's amazing. The stuff, it just works beautifully. And the biggest advantage with our hardware is that you have an open, clear space between the screws. So our standard one is 12 inches, but that's the space between the screw, not the overall length of the jaw. There's an 18-inch spacing or a 24-inch spacing. On the benches themselves, we offer for our 6-foot benches and our 7-foot benches, you can get you get the 12-inch spacing. On our 8-foot bench, which we started making again, you can do the 18-inch spacing. If you want the 24-inch spacing, that's going to be on the dovetail vise. So you can get an 18 or a 24-inch dovetail vise. And again, that's the spacing in between. So if you're doing cabinets and you want to dovetail them and they're 24 inches deep, you can put them in dovetail vise.
Yeah, I have the 18 and the 24, and whenever I do my dovetail class and stuff, I'll bring them. And the students, they love them. They're really nice.
Well, the really neat thing about that is, unlike a lot of the Moxon style vices, ours can be a little mini portable bench.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the only thing you have for work holding, you can do a lot with it. It's amazing.
Yes, you can. That's pretty awesome.
That is cool. So, switching gears a little bit. So let's talk about sharpening. So for most of our listeners probably know that there's a wealth of YouTube videos out there with a little bit younger Deneb. But to this day, if I'm sharpening something that I haven't done in a while, or something's a little bit off or something like that, like a skew or something, I don't do a lot of sharpenings on skews, I will go back to those videos and say, hey, did Deneb do something on this? And if so, yes, let's watch it and see. So,
that's a resource that we created quite a while ago, as you mentioned. And it's something a lot of people don't actually know about. So I always try to mention it to people whenever I'm talking to anybody about this stuff, is that if you go on our website, in the top toolbar over to the right, it says education. When you click on that, it opens up, and one of the topics listed is free instructional videos. And when you open that up, there's a hyperlink. It says YouTube channel. When you click on where it says YouTube channel, it opens up our YouTube channel, and you've got access to over 60 instructional videos. You don't have to go poking and finding it on YouTube or go on Google. You can go straight through our website and get to every video we've ever produced and put out there. And it's broken down into different categories and that kind of stuff. But that's something that's there all the time. And it's really valuable because everything that we do with those things is the best information that we can find and create to work with our tools. And that's the same thing when you're looking at the things that we offer that we don't make. Those are like the sharpening stones, the honing guide, the things that the DMT diaflat lapping plate. These are all the best options that we've been able to find to get the best results from our tools. You don't have to go looking for all this stuff. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just get the stuff and get to work. And I think that's the biggest thing that has sort of informed my my teaching style over the years is I'm not trying to sell you a methodology or a skill or a technique. I want you to have success using our tools. I want you to buy our tools.
All right.
Get them to work. Then you're not going to buy more. So I don't consider myself a salesman, or I wouldn't be able to do this job. I consider myself an educator, a teacher, and I'm trying to share as much knowledge and information as I can with anybody that I talk to. Because I've been doing this for almost 45 years. and I have knowledge and information trapped in here. For the past 25 years, I've been working with the entire line of Lie-Nielsen tools. There are not very many people in the world who have the experience with each of these type of tools that I do. And that's something I feel an obligation to share, because if I don't share it with people, it just goes when I go. And it's not helping anybody. So anything that I've ever done for videos or anything like that has been with that in mind. I want to share the best techniques I can with as many people as possible. So I'm not married to any technique at any time. Anytime I meet somebody or talk to somebody or work with another woodworker, and I mean, frankly, if you saw my phone, saw my contact list in my phone, most people watching this would just pass out. Because through what I do, I've had access to pretty much everybody you can think of and imagine. And I have felt that obligation to pick their brain and figure out what it is that they do and what works and what is not necessarily shareable with another person. Because that's my job, that's what I see as my job, is distill all this stuff as concisely and cleanly as possible so that people can have success. Because this is not something that is just, it's not common knowledge anymore. Used to be anybody could use hand tools. Right. That was the only option. If you were going to make something, you had to do it by hand. Now people have been, I wouldn't say tricked, but have been convinced that they need a $50,000 professional cabinet shop in their garage to make a step stool for their kids.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
When you think about it. And so I think that, like with sharpening in particular, there are only two skills you need to be able to use hand tools. You need to be able to sharpen, and you need to be able to set the tools out. If you can do those two things, then you can get hand tools to work. And so sharpening, most people overcomplicate. All a sharp edge is the intersection of two evenly polished surfaces. People get all wound up in the idea that to be a real woodworker, you have to freehand sharpen and you have to spend hours lapping the backs of your blades flat and clean and true. And then every single one of those guys takes that blade after they've sharpened it and they strop it. What are you doing when you strop?
Rounding it over.
You're drawing the polish out to the tip.
A
sharp edge is the intersection of two evenly polished surfaces. So if you don't have a clean intersection of that finest polish, you don't have the edge that you think you do. So most sharpening people they do way too much work on the abrasive grits, and they round over the tip of the blade, creating what I've always called a wear bevel. Chris Schwartz calls it an interference angle. There's also, it's a facet essentially at the tip. As the blade breaks down, it rounds over a little bit. What you'll see when you have a bright polish on say the back of the blade, you'll see a little white line at the very, very tip of the blade. If it's significant at all, that's a big problem. And most people fight with a wear bevel all the time, but they have no idea. So you think you've got this beautifully sharp edge and you go to use it and it doesn't cut like you're expecting it to. So then they learn about stropping and hallelujah, here it is. Now you pull it out. You pull the polish out to the tip. You pull the polish out to the tip on the other. What you're doing is introducing a back bevel on the flat back and a micro bevel or secondary bevel on the tip of the blade. It's just rounded out to the tip. So David Charlesworth came up with a whole process for sharpening that included what he called the ruler trick, which
well known.
Thin metal ruler on one side of your stone, and it is elevating, so you're isolating the very tip of the blade. I've lost well over a month of my life. I'm never going to lapping the backs of blades flat and polished for no reason. Because you never cut anything back an inch away from the blade.
Right.
But if you don't have that surface at the back an inch polished all the way to the tip, you're not getting the polish all the way through. So you have to do all that surface area to get the result when you're doing it that way. So when I learned the ruler trick from David, it was one of the few hallelujah moments I've ever had in my life. It was just like, it was like the veil had been pulled away from my eyes. You know, you don't have to kill yourself to get an edge. 10 seconds with the ruler trick, and you've got a polish all the way across the tip. And if you're working on a 3-inch wide stone, you stay within a half an inch of the far side. So you got the ruler on one edge of the stone. You're working within a half an inch of the other side. You're getting a consistent half a degree or less back bevel. Mm-hmm. It's not changing the configuration or the geometry of the cut in any way. You don't want to do it on chisels that you're going to pair with, because you need a flat plane running through a pairing.
Yeah.
But typically less metal in a chisel compared to a plain blade.
Yeah, you have less surface area to work, but there are some ways to do that too that make things easier.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're just running along the width of the stone, the length up like 90 degrees across and back up and down, you're going to dish the stone and crown the back of your blade.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of working along the stone, work in a stabbing motion onto the stone.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't wear the stone as much. And I usually divide the stone into thirds. So I'm working the first third down and back, then 2/3 of the way down and back, then all the way across down and back.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you do that, you've got generally have enough polish to get to work. You don't have to do anything. One of the key things with the ruler trick is only do it on your finishing stone, whatever your finest grit stone is.
Right.
And I like to work with a 10,000 grit stone, because past 10,000, there's a diminishing return.
Yep.
Up to 10,000, you're going to get more edge retention. The edges will last longer, and you get a slightly keener edge, a better cutting edge. After 10,000, the stones get really expensive, and you have to be looking under a microscope to see the difference.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that, but you also don't need, if you're using a micro bevel, a secondary bevel, and you're doing the ruler trick as a back bevel, you're doing such a small surface area, you don't need any intermediate stones. You can go from a 1,000 grit honing or roughing stone straight to that 10,000 grit finishing stone. The biggest sort of trick to sharpening is stop when you're done.
Yeah, don't keep going.
It's simple, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do too much work on any given grit. So I work in 3 to 4 stroke bursts on my stones. I get my blades set up at the angle that I want to work. And I typically, for any blade if I just pick up a blade and I'm going to sharpen it, chisel, plane iron, whatever it might be, bevel up, bevel down, I don't really care. I'm going to sharpen it with a 35-degree secondary bevel, because most blades have a 25-degree primary bevel. When you have 10 degrees difference between the primary and secondary bevel, the secondary bevel doesn't grow very quickly, so you don't have to regrind as frequently. The closer those two angles are together, the faster that secondary bevel will expand as you sharpen. So you're going to end up very quickly having to regrind, otherwise you're spending too much time polishing. So if you work in 3 to 4 stroke bursts, you are looking to feel a burr off the 1,000 grit stone that wasn't there before. As soon as you feel anything, stop, go to the next grit. Take a look at the bevel you've created. It should be a polished surface, but kind of a dull, grayish, milky color. When you go to the finished stone, 3 or 4 strokes, take a look. Should be a bright, almost black polish from corner to corner. And if you sit there and work on the 1,000 grit stone for 30 or 40 passes, you're going to dish the stone and crown the blade. You're introducing a camber.
Mm-hmm.
This is why people used to camber their blades. They couldn't flatten the stone. So the most important thing to me about sharpening is consistency. If you have a consistent process, then you have predictable results and repeatable results. So that consistency starts with the stone. Never work on a stone that's any more than a couple tenths out of flat, because now you are in control of what you're doing. You know what's happening. You're not introducing a shape that you don't intend to. So by working in 3 or 4 stroke bursts, you know when you're done, because if you feel a burr, you're done. You don't have to go. If you need to do another, if you don't not quite sure, spin the stone around, work off the other end. That end hasn't been dished yet, so you do 3 or 4 strokes there. If you still need a little bit more, I would spin that stone two more times. I would work off of each end twice. I'll never do more than about 10 strokes on an end of a stone before I'm going to reflatten that stone. So even if I just did one blade, 3 or 4 strokes, if I'm walking away, I flatten the stone. Because I know when I come back, it's there. But more importantly, it's quick. A couple of little swipes. I use that DMT diaflat plate because it's convenient. It's expensive. It's like almost $200, but it's right there. And as long as you never do anything but flatten stones on it, it's never going to wear out. So you can keep 3 things set up: the diamond plate, the diaflat plate, a 1,000 grit stone, a 10,000 grit stone. You have those 3 stone things out on your sharpening area, and that 2 square feet is the most valuable 2 square feet you have in your shop if you use hand tools. So you should never put any of it away. It's right there all the time. Never put it away. As soon as the plane starts performing differently than you expect it when you're working, that's when you should resharpen. Because the longer you wait past that point, the more work you're going to have to do to get back to sharp. So I'm trying to work with tools that are at 100%. I consider that edge off the 10,000 grit stone, that's 100%. It's basically the equivalent of what you get when you strop. So I don't like the stropping because it's non-controlled. I'm rounding my edges. Eventually I'm going to create an issue for myself. The ruler trick and the secondary bevel in a honing guide, controlled in a honing guide, is going to give you the same result every single time. You're working the same 2 angles every single time. So it's quick. You're not rebuilding anything. You're just touching it up. The longer you wait past the point where it feels different, the more work you have to do to get back. So if I'm working at 100% off the 10,000 grit, I try to never work with a blade that's any less than 85 or 90% of sharp. Because if I go past that, it's going to take me longer to get back. So I never sharpen dull tools. I'm sharpening tools that aren't sharp enough.
Right.
So because that's the first question people ask me is, when should I resharpen? Resharpen when it feels different.
Yep.
If it feels different, if you have a thought that goes through your head that, I should go a little deeper. Everything will be better if I go a little deeper. That's what goes through my head.
Yeah.
That's when I know I need to touch up the blade.
Yep. I've always said, if you ask the question, is this tool sharp enough, then you need to sharpen it.
It's time to sharpen. And because then you're just maintaining. You're not rebuilding, you're maintaining. And that's what makes it quick and easy.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is use a honing guide.
Right.
Yeah.
And y'all have the best honing guide out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We made it because we've got a drawer back at the shop that had just chock full of every single honing guide you could imagine. None of them do what they're supposed to do. Not across the board. So we came up with the honing guide we did because it kind of combines all the best benefits of everything.
Captured screws. That's what that is that's perfect. That's genius right there. The captured screws.
One of your questions is what are things that people might not notice about what you do. So the honing guide is a perfect example of that. So we were talking earlier about the little things, the improvements that have been made on the tools that most of them are so subtle people are never going to notice it. But with the honing guide, the way that works is it's a double threaded rod. So one is standard thread, one is reverse thread. So as you turn the rod, it's pushing the jaws apart or pulling the jaws together. So one side of that is going to be reverse threaded, one side is standard thread. So we put the reverse threaded side on the right hand side, which is where we put the brass nut that goes on the end. Because if you're tightening that and you over tighten it, it'll break free. But if you have over tightened it and you can't get it loose by your hand, you put a screwdriver on there and you break it free, you're tightening the nut onto the threaded rod. We could have put that on either side, and the typical thought would be put the standard thread on the most common side. But then if you are cranking it down tight, it's gonna be tightening onto the thread, and then when you go to release it, it's gonna release the nut. So that's just a little thing. And then
well, that's another thing about the honing guide is you don't have to crank it down.
No,
It will. Yeah, it will.
Tight. It's machined so well, you just finger tight. You
boom.
But those little screws, we had to use small screws to hold the jaws on. Could have just used regular screws, threaded them in there, and had the thing threaded all the way through, and everything that would have worked fine. But instead, we made it so that the screw is a smooth shank in the middle, and only threaded on the tip. So you thread it down into the jaw, and then it just rattles around on there. And when you go to thread it down onto the body, the threads bite and it sucks everything down. So you might lose the whole jaw, but you're not going to lose the screws.
Yeah. Which is not, another thing's nice about that is, the jaws can be on either side. It doesn't, and if it's simple. It's just so simple.
We just made everything as simple as, we didn't try to make one thing that would do everything. So the standard jaws that come with it will do almost anything you need to sharpen. It'll go from a 1/4 inch wide chisel up to a 2 7/8 wide blade, our 112 scraper blade. And as long as the blade isn't more than 1/4 inch thick, it'll fit inside the triangle jaw. It clamps from the side. So it's just, you bump it against a stop that gives you the angle you want to work at, clamp it down, and start sharpening. It's that simple.
Yeah.
If something won't fit in those standard jaws, we have other jaws. So for short blades, like a spoke shave or a shoulder plane blade, we have the long jaws that'll just hold onto the blade where you need it. Jaws won't tap.
Well, that and like the 140, the skew block plane.
I used to tell people not to buy that plane because I knew they wouldn't be able to sharpen it.
Sharpen it, yeah.
Right.
So when we made those
it's so
jaws,
easy to sharpen on that, though.
It's just like any other blade. It's just holding it at a skew.
At an angle.
And we have the 30-degree jaws for the 9899. That's basically the only tools that those jaws work for. There's no, we don't make any other blade that's 30 degrees. But if you don't have those jaws, good luck sharpening that blade. It's tough. So the whole process for us is make it as simple as possible, make it repeatable so that people can have success. When I first started doing all this, I had learned freehand sharpen. I'd do a figure 8 pattern, do a secondary bevel freehand. I can make it look real easy. It goes quick. But I know that anybody watching me, in the back of their mind, they're like, I can't do that. Never going to be able to do that. And they're probably right, because they don't have 3,000 hours to put into it to get good. You might get 5 hours a week in your shop on a good week, most people.
Mm-hmm.
You're not spending that time sharpening. You want to spend that time making something. So I can spend 10 minutes with somebody and teach them how to freehand sharpen. And I can show them that they could potentially at some point get really good results. I know they're going to go home and they're not going to have those results right away. I can spend that same 10 minutes, show them how to sharpen with the honing guide and the ruler trick and a secondary bevel. And I know they're going to go home and get the same exact results I got.
Yeah.
The first time and every time thereafter, as long as they follow those steps. So we've taken it from being a skill to being a process.
Right.
And if you follow that process, you're going to have success. You're going to have results. The same thing goes into the tools, because to have success with the tools, you got to be able to set them up. You got to be able to get them to give you a result. So you have to know what you're asking the tool to do. When you pick up a plane, you're taking one of 3 cuts. You're taking a roughing cut. You're just trying to remove a lot of material quick. You're taking a flattening cut where you're trying to get the stock as flat as possible to do the next stage. Or you're taking a finishing cut where you're trying for that final, nice, clean surface. Those are 3 distinct thicknesses of cut. And when you're talking about the rough work, where you're just trying to get, you've got a piece of rough sawn material and you need to take 1/4 inch off of it. I'm going to typically use a scrub plane for the first work. It's got a narrow blade, a 3 or 4 inch radius on the blade, and you're taking chips. You're not taking shapes. You're just removing stock, and you make a mess. It's going to be scalloped. It's going to be tear out. There's going to be but you got rid of the material you need to get rid of. I like to follow that up with a tooth blade in my number 62, the low angle jack plane, because I can set that for almost a 32nd of an inch for a cut. Pretty heavy. I mean, I'm still removing a lot of material. I clean up the mess I made with the scrub pretty quickly. It's in a jack plane. The jack plane is my primary roughing tool because it's long enough at 15 inches long to get things reasonably flat, but it's short enough to get there quickly. So I have the tooth blade in the low angle one because everything's supported. The teeth don't break off. If you put a tooth blade in a traditional 45-degree bedded plane, hit a knot and the teeth break right off. We used to make a tooth blade for the number 5, and we stopped because we were getting them sent back with the teeth broken. But that never had that problem happen with the tooth blade in the 62. Because it's an interrupted cut, a little series of little tines, you don't get tear out. So you're going to get tear out from the scrub plus the scalloped cuts. You can clean that all up really quickly with the tooth blade in the 62, get down to a basically flat surface, but it's got all these little grooves in it from the toothing blade. I now switch over to either the regular straight blade in the 62, or if I have at home, I have right here on the wall, I've got a 5.5. This is where I'm starting my roughing cuts, what I consider a roughing cut. So a piece of paper is about 4 thousandths thick. My roughing cuts are typically between 4 to 12 thou. And I rarely go 12 thou because you don't have very much control. If I need to take that much, I'm probably doing it with either the scrub or the tooth blade in the 62. And I'm chasing that out with a 4 or 5 thou cut in my 5.5 or the 62 with a regular blade. Because maybe you don't have two jack planes, maybe you just have the one. Once you've gotten the surface smooth, it's not as flat as it needs to be or can be. So then I turn to the joiner plane. It's a joiner's plane, not a jointing plane.
Right.
So the other names for these tools were the 4 plane for anything 12 inches to 18 inches. Right. The jack plane is right in the middle, so it's the jack of all planes. The 4 plane is the plane you use before the triplane or joiner's plane. The triplane was used to try the surface for flat, to try an edge for straight. So it's a big, long plane, and you set it for about half the depth cut that you're working at the roughing. So if I'm working at 4 or 5 thou for the roughing, I'm going to be at about 2 thou for the flattening. When I jump to the final finishing surfaces, and the joiner planes are about 22 to 24 inches typically, the metal ones. They used to have wooden ones that were 36 inches, 48 inches, big, massive things. But once you've gotten it as flat as you need it with the joiner plane, now you switch to a smoother, which is only 10 inches or less. So the 4.5 is 10 inches. The 4 is 9 inches. The 3 is 8. It gets smaller and smaller. I'm setting that for 1 to 1.5 thou. So I've gone from a piece of paper in thickness, which is, when you say 4 thou, it doesn't sound like much. But a piece of paper, that's a fairly significant shaving to be pushing.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing my roughing is about 4 thou, flattening is about 2 thou, about half a piece of paper, and then finishing is 1 to 1.5 thou. As long as I'm taking less than 2 thou and my blade is parallel to the sole of the plane, the corners won't dig in. So I don't have to put a camber on my blades to get rid of track marks. You can if you want to. Makes it a little easier, but you don't have to. So getting back to keeping sharpening simple, when you're getting started with this, don't overcomplicate it. Just sharpen everything straight, do a secondary bevel at 35 degrees, the ruler trick on the back, and get to work.
Right.
The way to control the setting of the plane, I use a little block of wood. I typically use poplar because it gets really lacy at the finish cuts when you're taking really thin cuts. As you take thicker cuts, it holds together. So you can really see differences as you're setting up. So I'll take a pass from each corner of the blade, a shaving off the left side, a shaving off the right side, and look at those shavings. If they look like they're about the same thickness, I know it's parallel. Typically, I'd set that for as thin a cut as I can possibly get, because it also is giving me some other feedback. if I can take an actual shaving at say half a thou where it's just barely holding together, then I know my blade's nice and sharp. If it's more of a dusty or sort of it's kind of just rubbing and not really cutting, then I know my edge isn't as sharp as I think it is. So what happens to most people is the thinnest cut they can ever take is a 1/4 thou cut because their blade isn't sharp enough.
Sharp enough, yeah.
It won't engage at any less than 1/4 thou. So they think that's a really thin shaving and, oh, look what I'm doing. And it's not bad, but the heavier the cut you take, the less control you have of over what you're doing to the board. So if you have the gross removal tools, the scrub and the tooth blade, you can get the heavy work done quickly. And then you can refine everything in much thinner cuts than you might have thought you would be working at. So the whole goal to me is take as little material off that board as I have to get the result I want. The heavier the cut I take, the more I'm going to be fighting to get the result I'm looking for. So by switching the sizes of the planes around and the depth of cut that you're working with, you make the whole process more efficient. So you start with a medium-sized plane to get things basically flat and ready. You go to the biggest, longest plane to get it as smooth, as flat as it can be. And then you go to the smaller plane because I will immediately be able to take my 1 thou finishing. It's flat enough. It'll happen. And if I can't with a 4.5, which is what I typically reach for first, I'll grab my number 3 because it's so much smaller. If I was getting anything with the 4.5, I'm going to get the full 1.5 thou cut with the 3, or I'll go back to the joiner and get it a little flatter so that I can do it with the 4.5. Depends on how flat I need the piece to be for the next stage. And
yeah, I have your bronze number 3, and that's one of my favorite planes.
Oh, it's a lovely little plane.
Yeah.
I don't use it a lot because I get stuff flat enough with my joiner that I can use my 4.5.
Yeah.
And I happen to have the 4.5 bronze. So
there you go. Fantastic. Wow. That is nice. That is nice. Well, before we wrap it up, I do have a couple of questions for you. So you mentioned at the start you're making some 6-board chests for your daughters. So what do you like to make in your shop? What are some of your favorite projects?
If I'm just going for a quick hit, some satisfaction just to get something done because I want to prove to myself I still can, I make spoons. I carve spoons.
Okay. Nice.
Because it's exercising all of the muscles. You have to follow the rules. You have to work with the grain. You have to have good sharp edges. Everything. It's just sort of exercising it's like taking a language class, it just sort of refreshes everything, keeps it all going, and I get instant gratification. I can sit down and in a couple hours I can have a spoon made.
That's right.
And that it's just I love that for that. And it's something if somebody comes to me that's never touched a tool before, never done any of this kind of stuff, and they want to get into it, I always steer them towards spoon making because their toolkit is negligible. You got to have a hook knife, a straight knife, and a hatchet, and maybe a little saw to a silky saw or something to go cut some branches off a tree somewhere.
Yeah, not your neighbors.
Or just steal them from your neighbor's yard.
If you have those 4 things, you can make spoons.
Yeah.
But you have to do everything right. You have to have good sharp tools. You have to follow grain. You have to do all the things. And you have to be careful. And it just starts training people up for that. When I have a little more time and I tend to work in shaker style.
Okay.
For stuff. That's what it's the simplicity of it, the clean lines and all that. I don't like a lot of decorative stuff myself. Sometimes I'll do some veneering, or I'll use different types of woods for some color contrast and that kind of stuff. But I tend to just keep stuff really simple because that it's harder than it seems.
Oh yeah.
To execute that well. The more simple the design, the more cleanly it has to be executed, and that's something that just sort of
So someone once told me Yeah, simple is difficult.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
You can't hide your mistakes with bling.
Exactly. Well, that is cool. Well, so what else do you like to do outside of woodworking? I'd probably know the answer from your Instagram, but
I do a lot of fishing.
Yep.
And I get out on my boat whenever I can.
Nice.
It's that's I don't take a lot of vacations.
Mm-hmm.
So my vacations are typically from 5 till 9 p.m. out on my boat on the river in the summertime.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
And if I can bring home a couple fish, then so much the better.
There you go. There you go. Well, fantastic. Well, Deneb, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
I do have an Instagram page that I rarely put anything on because I don't, if I put anything there, it's purely about woodworking or
Fishing,
or Lie-Nielsen Toolworks or fishing.
Yeah.
But I try not to use it as a personal platform.
Right.
I don't need people in my life that much. You can see, like I mentioned earlier, with the videos on our YouTube channel. There's probably 40 or 50 videos on there that have me in them somewhere. And then and that's really about it. I mean, I am not, or you come to one of our hand tool events, or
Exactly.
There you go.
keep an eye on our website. I
Yeah.
do teach classes occasionally in places whenever I can. I mean,
Yep.
it usually ends up being tied somehow to one of our events,
Mm.
just because then I'm not pulled away from the shop too much.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, I mean, my whole goal is get as much information out there as I can. If you ever have a question, you can shoot me an email at Lie-Nielsen Toolworks. Or the email address there is toolworks@Lie-Nielsen.com. And that's LIE-NIELSEN.
That's right.
So just give us a phone call. If the person that answers isn't me, you can always ask for me. And if they can't get me, they can take your number and I can give you a call back. I'm happy to help with anything, anytime. It's not, like I said earlier, that's what I consider as my job, is to share information about hand tool woodworking with as many people as I possibly can. We just did a video, and you can go to the Lie-Nielsen Instagram page as well. We do little videos every once in a while. We did one just the other day with the number 48. I want to say it was either 2 million or 4 million views.
Wow, nice.
Really? That's phenomenal.
It was something ridiculous. We had 500,000 views within an hour.
Wow.
Wow.
It was something ridiculous. I was just astounded at the numbers. But that's just the Lie-Nielsen Instagram page. So you'll see stuff there occasionally too.
All right. Well,
a question in here that was interesting to me.
okay.
Let's see if I can find, or maybe it's in the next section.
It may be in our next thing.
Yeah, and I guess one thing was that I just made a note on is you were asking about in-person learning, how important in-person learning is. YouTube is great. The videos and things, the Instagram stuff, it's a great avenue if you find the right people. You can't always tell from a video what you're getting for the skill level of the person that's presenting the stuff. You can't hide in person. So you get more from a video than you get from an article. You get more from a book than you get from an article, but videos and I'd say more from a well-written book than you get from a video. But the things you get from videos are the little things that people don't write, the things that they forget to say.
Yeah.
Because most of the people writing this stuff are really good at what they do. And some of the stuff that you, as the person trying to learn, need to learn the most are the base level things that this person has forgotten they do. It doesn't even occur to them to write some little thing that they do that you're going to see in the video. And if you're looking closely enough, you can pick up stuff. When you're in a classroom with somebody, you can ask about why somebody did something a certain way. You can ask whatever questions come to your mind based on what you're seeing being done in front of you. So it's invaluable to, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
I think in person is anytime you can learn that way, you cut your learning curve in half, if not.
Oh, well, yeah.
You know, so just be careful who you take classes from.
That's right.
There are quite a few schools now that are really, really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And again, you can find out a lot just by surfing around on the internet and seeing what kind of stuff they're putting out there about themselves. But the best thing is give people, if you're interested in taking a class from somebody, give them a call, talk to them a little bit, see if it's the right person for you.
Yeah, because in some respects, you know, they may have all the knowledge in the world, but if y'all don't connect,
exactly,
then it might not be a good class for you. So yeah, that's very important. Well, with that, let's move on to our fortnightly beer choices. So I will start us off. Of all things, I am drinking a Hefeweizen called Live Oak. It's a local Houston brewery here, so it's probably not widely available, but I'm not one for the wheat beers, but this one is really, really good. My wife extremely likes it. So I was like, well, let me try it. I go, this is a pretty good beer, and I do not like the wheat beers that much. So anyway,
they're good summertime beers.
Yeah,
those are good porch beers. Yeah,
exactly. With that, Jeff, what sparkling water are you sipping on there?
Yeah, the lime with mint.
Lime
pretty
with
good.
mint. Okay.
Yeah, lime with mint.
Nice.
How about you, Brian?
I'm drinking a beer. It's a double IPA called King Sap. It's from Treehouse Brewing out of Massachusetts. It's good. It's a little strong, 7.8%. But yeah, I like it. I'd definitely have it again. Sean, how about you?
Standard for me, Miller Lite house beer. Deneb, how about you, man? What are you sipping on?
I'm actually not drinking a beer right now, but if I could have any beer that I wanted, it would be a Belgian ale called Perrot. It's
nice. Perrot. I think I have heard of that. I don't know if I've had it, but I think I've seen that. Cool.
It's a really good one. And then if you're lucky enough to be anywhere near Vermont or know anybody that lives in Vermont, try some Heady Topper.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah.
So I gotta ask you, do you think Focal Banger is better than Heady Topper? People are passionate about this, apparently.
I think Focal Banger is a little more heavy.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
it's got a little more sort of kick to it. I am partial to the Heady Topper because was the first one that I had from the Alchemist.
Yep.
And I think that the people that are really geared towards the Focal Banger have just drank a lot of Heady Topper.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah,
that's
New Englanders, man.
I love IPAs and like Pliny the Elder by the Russian River.
Oh, yeah.
That's
a great one.
I really like. But I've had way more IPAs than I probably should have over the years. And so I just don't drink them very often anymore. If I'm looking for a daily drink, it's Guinness.
Oh yeah. That's usually my house beer is Guinness. Yeah.
It's a nice light beer.
Yeah.
It's the original light beer. It's only 125 calories.
Yeah. And it's only like 4.2, I think. Yeah.
I do want to confirm European Guinness is much better than American Guinness.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a little stronger too. Yeah. Now, if I'm overseas, I don't know if you could find that when you were in England, but Murphy's Stout is my favorite stout.
That's a good one.
It's hard to find though. But,
yeah, I didn't see it, but
definitely
the draft Guinness was much better.
Yeah. When you're up in the north of England, Boddington's another one.
Oh, Boddington's, that's good. Yes. Well, with that, let's move on to feedback. So I'll let you start us off, Brian, but I wanted to mention this is episode 602 and 603 with Owen Madden, but he sent me a DM just right before we started and said that he's gotten a lot of signups for the Woodworkers Book Club. So appreciate all our listeners, reaching out and joining up with the club, and hopefully we'll see you at one of the upcoming meetings.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So for the episode 602, 603, our first bit of feedback here is from Heffron Mike. He says, "Hey, I read books with that guy. So if you want to read books with Heffron and Owen, be sure to sign up for the Woodworkers Book Club there." And then our good friend of the show here, Bill's Yard, says, "Great show, gentlemen. It's always interesting to hear how people fall into woodworking and how their careers unfold." Excuse me. So thanks, Bill. Actually, his name's not Bill, right?
No, it's Alex.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Bill's Yard, but
yeah. So I keep forgetting that.
Yeah.
But if you, dear listener, would like to leave us some feedback, probably the best place to do this is the MWA podcast Instagram. And if you could do us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast transmitting device of choice, it will help get the show out in front of other people.
And that just about wraps it up for this show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on the podcatcher of your choice. Just search for the Modern Woodworkers Association. And while you're there, please leave us a review. You can follow us on Instagram at MWA_podcast. And if you'd like to support the podcast, go over to patreon.com/MWA podcast. But the best thing you can do is tell a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way in sharing our discussion.